At a family dinner filled with laughter and polished silver, one shocking act shattered the room. A husband leaned across the table and spat on his wife. What he never realized was that the very empire he bragged about, the company he claimed to own, was not his at all, because the quiet woman he humiliated secretly controlled 90% of it. What happened next left every guest in stunned silence and flipped the balance of power forever. Stay until the end, because the truth she revealed that night will leave you speechless. The dining hall glowed under crystal chandeliers. Silver cutlery clinked softly against porcelain. Plates. The air smelled of roasted lamb and aged wine. Family members sat around. The long mahogany table. Laughter echoed, forced and sharp, like glass breaking. At the head of the table sat Daniel, the husband, his posture stiff, his voice louder than it needed to be. Beside him sat Evelyn, the wife, calm yet silent. Her eyes scanned the room, noting every smirk and glance. A story was being told, Daniel's version of their success. Every word painted him as the mastermind. Every pause dragged Evelyn deeper into the shadows. Her hands trembled slightly, hidden beneath the white linen. Then it happened. A sudden pause in his speech. A sneer stretched across his face. He leaned toward Evelyn and spat. The sound was small. The silence that followed was enormous. Chairs creaked as relatives shifted. Uncomfortably, the chandelier's glow suddenly felt harsh, like a spotlight. Evelyn's cheek burned, but her expression never broke. Her eyes remained steady, locked on Daniel's. The family murmured, voices barely above whispers. No one dared to speak against him. Daniel leaned back, smug, believing he had won the room, but beneath the surface, Evelyn felt the ground shift. Her heartbeat quickened, not with shame, but with resolve, because only she knew the truth. 90% of the company, the empire Daniel bragged about, belonged to her, and he had no idea. She placed her napkin down slowly, the fabric brushing against her palm. The silence was unbearable, thick like fog. Her voice finally broke it, low, calm, measured. Are you finished humiliating yourself, Daniel? The entire table froze. Daniel's smirk faltered, just slightly. Evelyn leaned back, her gaze unyielding, her next words heavy as stone. You speak as if you built everything, when you own almost nothing. The room held its breath, and Daniel's world tilted, though he did not yet realize how far it was about to fall. Daniel's fork slipped from his hand. The metallic clang against the plate sliced through the silence. His eyes darted around the table, searching for support. But every gaze was fixed on Evelyn. She reached for her glass, her hand steady now. The wine glistened deep red, almost like blood under the light. She took a slow sip, then set it down deliberately. Perhaps I should clarify, she said, her voice slicing the air. The contracts, the shares, the very company you boast about. She let the pause linger, heavy and suffocating. They are in my name. 90%. Gasps erupted from across the table. An aunt covered her mouth. A cousin whispered, Impossible! Daniel's face drained of color. His lips twitched, desperate to form words, but none came. Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes narrowing, unblinking. For years, you paraded yourself as the savior of this family, the genius, the man in control. Her tone sharpened, each word deliberate. But tonight, everyone here will see the truth. Daniel's hand gripped the edge of the table, knuckles pale. The chandelier above swayed slightly. Though there was no wind, a creak of wood echoed from the walls, almost as if the house itself was listening. You spat on me, Evelyn whispered, her voice chilling, not realizing you spit on the very foundation you stand on. The silence was unbearable. Daniel finally managed a laugh. It was hollow, jagged, a desperate mask. You are bluffing, he said. Though his voice shook, Evelyn tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. Would you like me to show them the documents? The room erupted in murmurs, anxious and confused. Daniel's heart hammered so loudly he thought the others could hear it. Sweat gathered at his temple, and then for the first time in his life, he realized he was not the one in control. Daniel's laugh died in his throat. The air grew heavy, pressing down on every chest in the room. Evelyn reached into her purse. The leather creaked as she unfastened it. From within, she pulled a slim folder. The gold seal of their company shimmered beneath the chandelier's glow. She laid it flat on the table, sliding it slowly toward the center. Papers peeked from the edges, crisp and undeniable. Every eye followed the folder as though it were a weapon. Signatures, transfers, agreements, Evelyn said, each one placing control in my hands. A cousin leaned forward, straining to read the top page. His lips moved silently as his eyes widened. "It is true," he whispered. Daniel's chest tightened. A ringing filled his ears, drowning out the murmurs. His throat felt dry, his tongue thick. He wanted to stand, but his legs would not obey. Evelyn's gaze bore into him, steady and merciless. "For years I allowed you to speak over me, to humiliate me, to spit on me." Her words dripped with venom, measured and precise. I said nothing. "Because silence is a powerful disguise." The family shifted uneasily, whispers swelling into panic. Daniel's father slammed a hand on the table. "Is this true, Daniel? Did you not own it?" Daniel's lips parted, but only a shallow breath escaped. Evelyn leaned closer, her voice a blade sliding against stone. "You thought you had power, but all along you were only borrowing mine." The chandelier above flickered once. The entire table seemed to lean toward Evelyn now, as though gravity itself had changed. Daniel's hands trembled, his fingers curling uselessly against the polished wood. And in that moment, he realized he was no longer the head of this family. He was prey. The room was no longer his. Daniel sat frozen. Stripped of authority, his smirk shattered. Every relative now leaned toward Evelyn, their eyes filled with a mix of awe and fear. She gathered the folder, tucking it neatly back into her purse. Her movements calm, deliberate, unshaken. Then she rose from her chair. The hem of her dress brushed the marble floor as silence followed her. Her hand rested briefly on the back of her chair, fingers grazing the polished wood. She looked around the table, her voice steady and final. This dinner was meant to celebrate family, but family does not survive on lies. Her words struck like thunder in the quiet room. You may all choose where your loyalty lies, with a man who spits, or with the woman who holds the future. No one dared to speak. The chandelier's crystals trembled softly, scattering fractured light across Evelyn's face. She turned her eyes on Daniel one last time. "Enjoy your meal, husband. It may be the last time you sit at the head of this table." Then she walked out, the echo of her heels sharp and commanding. The heavy doors closed behind her, sealing the silence. Daniel sat in the wreckage of his pride, the whispers of the family cutting deeper than any blade, and for the first time in his life, he was utterly powerless.